Sorry about that, everyone. I was signed out into a different account when I told it to start streaming. In any case, the video is doing pretty well so far. We'll see how it continues to go throughout the week, but it's already getting pretty close to surpassing on its second day what we did with the last video. Like to dislike ratio is right there at 1%, which is very good. And overall, I've been really happy with the response. So, I haven't read this one. Anyways, good stuff. Now I've got to decide what I'm going to do next, right? So, I could just push forward with Suikoden 2 and just like get it done and over with. But there is a part of me that just is not happy with, there's just nagging me, this fact that I can't find an answer to my question about it. I don't like it. So I'm going to read the notes that I had and see if anything sparks, but if not, there are other video ideas we could decide on. So, let's see. This is mostly just my own stuff. Okay, this part. This part I just don't know about. I just don't know. It probably started out somewhere like this. I need to find a thesis for this video too, though. But here's my kind of holdup. Is I've been really happy with the last two videos that I made. To me, that is exactly what I'm looking for in terms of the type of video I want to make. What the fuck? Well, it's just supposed to be two expressions. What was I saying? Anyways, the videos that I've made, they deepen the appreciation of people watching for that thing, right? I feel like that's what I'm good at. I don't have that same passion for Suikoden 2. So I'm worried that, and I've said this for a while, I want to get away from making value judgments and doing quote-unquote review content. That's not what I'm really wanting to do. At the same time, people on Patreon voted for it, and they want me to do a Suikoden 2 review. And since I did one for the first game already, it would just be nice to be consistent in terms of kind of like finishing what I started, so to speak. So, I don't know. Chris says, I think you hit the sweet spot with that video of a fuse positivity for something people associate with the channel combined with thoughtful analysis. Yeah, I agree. I think that is and should be the identity of the channel moving forward. So, you could always pretend to just have loved Suikoden 2. That is something that has crossed my mind. That is something that has crossed my mind in terms of how I do this. But I could also use this as an opportunity to make a video that is not really a review of the game. It is just more of a overview of it. And but that doesn't go into any value judgments on my part. So that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do. We'll see. if you don't think you've got the passion and material, then don't force it. I think Suikoden is kind of obscure, so simply putting it out there could bring it to a new audience, unlike some of the other videos. So if we go to this part, I should probably look more into this Chuhan contention, because I think there's probably something there that would work in terms of talking, like an angle of Suikoden 2 that you haven't really heard a lot from other people. I agree, Eric. I agree. I think that that's going to be kind of my aim moving forward, is to put a video like that every couple weeks, really consistently moving forward. Moriyama was creating an RPG for Konami's game console. That game featured a story where two friends ended up on opposing sides of a war. Also featured a strong emphasis on the element of raising characters, planned for many classes. So very early in development. Moriyama choice. Remembered when I got Black Onyx from my parents. Oh, this is a quote from him. I could start with a quote like this, because we could just kind of leave off from Suikoden 1, success, merited, sequel. Yeah, because it leads right into why they chose to stick with pixelated graphics or sprite art. Chris says, you got to do something about how musical leitmotifs tell story in FF, like how Terra's theme keeps recapitulating in different tones through FF6. That would be a fun video to make, I think. That would be pretty good. Not a bad. Let's put that as a video idea. How musical leitmotifs tell story in Final Fantasy games. I won't be able to stream for a super long time today, but I think I should at least get something going. You know, just put something on paper. So let's try that right now. What should be the theme or thesis premise of my video? What do I want to say with this one? Where are you going, Eric? You said you were getting back in mid-October. I'm gonna open this door again. Warm. Being loud anymore? In all seriousness, I've been playing Dragon Quest XI S in 2D, and I think it would be cool on discussing how story presentation works effectively between 2D. That's actually a phenomenal idea. I've been wanting to pick that game up too. GQ11S. How story presentation works effectively between 2D and 3D. Something in that vein. Eric says going to Tampa, Florida, going on a cruise for honeymoon around islands of Mexico. Congratulations. I forgot. You're getting married. That's fantastic, dude. It should be a really fun honeymoon. Happy for you and your fiance. Have a great time. I don't know why I keep refreshing this. So I wanted to see if this guy was going to respond or not, but maybe not. Let's see. What should I say? I should say something like... Let's do it this way. How many copies did it sell, the first game? Suikoden. Legacy. Oh, interesting. How many copies did it sell? I love how the development history on this game is literally this tiny short sentence. Suikoden took roughly 2 years to develop. That is it. When I saw that when I was making the video for Suikoden 1, I was like, oh crap, I'm screwed. Is Blood Omen an RPG? I guess so, I don't know. I haven't played it. Let's see. Oh. I'm just gonna spitball. Let's see. When Suikoden launched in December of 1995. Arrived early enough to make it, but that's not really what I'm trying to say. Early enough to become one of the very first sprawling JRPGs to land on the PS1 platform, which would later become a haven for the genre. Suikoden launched in December of 1995. Suikoden launched in December 1995. It arrived early enough to become one of the very first sprawling JRPGs to land on PS1 platform, which would later become a haven. Haven. not exactly the word I'm looking for. Maybe home. Shanty. Nest is kind of right. An airy. Nest is a pretty good word. Nest and haven for the hole. Suikoden launched in December 1995. It arrived early enough to become one of the very first sprawling JRPGs to land on the PS1 platform, which would later become a nest and haven for the genre. Oh. The timing was, or that timing was fortunate. Considered. A petri dish for the genre as a whole. When Suikoden launched in December 1995, it arrived early enough to become one of the very first sprawling JRPGs to land on the PS1 platform, which would later become a nest and haven for. That timing was fortunate, seeing as powerhouses from Squaresoft were soon to follow. At the time, Suikoden was even considered some the warm-up. What's from? GameSpot. Powerhouses from Squaresoft were soon to follow, and at that time, Suikoden was even considered by some to be a warm-up to games like Final Fantasy VII and Wild Arms. See if we can find this video here. Getting a scam call. I'm getting so many of these recently. Holy crap. It's been freaking nuts. How many spam calls? I get probably like 4 or 5 spam calls. Luckily, or scam calls, I should say. Luckily, Google has this nice little feature in their Pixel phones that allow you to screen the call. So, like, an automated message will come on and say, "This is a screening service from Google. Please state your name and why you're calling." And then it'll, like, if they speak, it'll, like, transliterate. What's the word for that? Transcribe what's being said, and I could be like, block that, or, ooh, that's somebody I need to talk to. So it's kind of cool. What the fetch? I just got a scam text. So crazy. I've never seen that before. That is nuts. Anyways, that was weird. This open up? Just the review. Groundbreaking is definitely good. Wait, this is like a... The fetch? Jeff Gerstmann, yeah. Who is this? Is this guy even write for the site, or is this just like some review by like a random like freaking user? This doesn't seem like a legit review. This was 1997. I mean, maybe they were just this short back then. So consider it a warm-up for Wild Arms in Final Fantasy VII. There it is. Guess I'll save this page and put it into the Suikoden research thing that I don't have here for some reason. Oh, whatever. Save it in the bookmarks bar, that's fine. Arrived early enough to become one of the very first sprawling JRPGs to land on the PS1, a platform which would later become a nest and haven for the timing was fortunate, seeing as powerhouses from Squaresoft were soon to follow. At the time, Suikoden was even considered by some to be a warm-up for games like Final Fantasy VII and Wild Arms. Sequel, in the eyes of the higher-ups at Konami. Have you not been getting spam text all the time already? The line between article and comment becomes blurrier and blurrier. Yeah. That time he was fortunate seeing his powerhouses from Squaresoft were soon to follow. And at the time, Suikoden was even considered by some to be a warm-up to games like Final Fantasy VII. Due to being first to the party, so to speak, it sold well, meriting a sequel in the eyes of the higher-ups at Konami. So, Yoshitaka Moriyama, series creator, began about, I don't want to say it that way. Due to being first to the party, so to speak, it sold well, meriting a sequel in the eyes of the higher-ups economy. So Yoshitaka Moriyama, the series creator, got to work thinking about where the series should go next. It's a good starting paragraph. When examining. Oh. I started both of them with when. Upon examining the feedback from fans of the first title, Moriyama quickly noticed that players seemed most drawn to Suikoden's story and world. Majority there's a lot of mosts in that sentence. Upon examining the feedback from fans for the first title. Upon examining the feedback from fans for the first title, Moriyama noticed that the majority of the most passionate players seemed drawn to Suikoden's story and world above everything else. So we'll drop the quote. We noticed that players really loved the world and characters we had created. All the letters we got, all the response, are about the story and the world it took place in. We got immersed in our universe and were spellbound by the characters we filled it with. Once we realized that we could only afford to either develop better graphics or develop Suikoden world. Let's separate these actually. This was key. This feedback was key in deciding how to proceed with the development of the sequel. By this time, PlayStation games were beginning to push the boundaries of what could be accomplished with 3D graphics. With contemporaries like Final Fantasy setting the standard for what players would expect from RPGs moving forward. However, given the smaller budget, Konami could what's the word I'm thinking? Allocate. Feel a little conflicted about that concept. On the one hand, I appreciate the world story more than the graphics any day. On the other hand, Square seems to have done better going the other direction. I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily that. Actually, I'm not sure if I think that Square focused more on graphics than the world and story, as much as they just had access to more resources. They had more money to put into it. So if Suikoden with a smaller budget was going to try to accomplish graphically what Final Fantasy was doing, that would mean more resources, more people put onto the team to accomplish that purpose, and less time, I guess, dedicated to building out scenarios and design and that sort of thing. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, it seems to me like they had to make a choice because they are smaller than Square. I guess that's kind of how I read that. But feedback was key in deciding how to proceed with the development sequel. By this time, PlayStation games were beginning to push the boundaries of what could be accomplished with 3D graphics. Libraries like Final Fantasy setting the standard for what players would expect from RPGs moving forward. However, given the smaller budget, Konami allocate Project Moriyama felt he had a hard choice ahead of him. Once we realized that we could only afford to either develop better graphics or develop Suikoden's world more, the choice was obvious. We chose the world. And then wait a minute. Dang it. During the course of the first game's development, Moriyama had chosen to stick with sprite-based art rather than building the game in 3D, because in 1994 he simply wasn't impressed by early tests he was seeing with new technology. Does that sentence make any sense? During the course of the first game's development, that's not how you spell technology, fetching idiot. During the course of the first game's development, Moriyama had chosen to stick with sprite-based art rather than building the game in 3D, because in 1984 he simply wasn't impressed by early tests. Demonstrating possibilities of technology. During the course of the first game's development, Moriyama had chosen to stick with sprite-based art rather than building a game in 3D, because in 1994 he simply wasn't impressed by early tests demonstrating the possibilities of the new technology. And we can put the early polygon tests I saw were not impressive. I think the technology was still too young. 3D models didn't feel like people, they were too expressionless. I chose to make a pixel-based game instead because it would be better able. Chose to make pixel-based game instead because we would be better able to express the characters and give them more soul. However, However, by the time once it was time to move forward with the sequel, PlayStation games were beginning to push the boundaries of what could be accomplished with 3D graphics, with contemporaries like Final Fantasy setting the standard for what players would expect from our forward. However, given the smaller budget Konami can allocate to the project, more choice of it. When examining the feedback from fans of the first title, Moriyama noticed that the majority of the most passionate players seemed drawn to Suikoden's story and world above everything else. When examining the feedback from fans of the first title, Moriyama noticed that the majority of the most passionate players seemed drawn to Suikoden's story and world above everything else. Anything else? We noticed that players really loved the world and characters created. All the letters we got, all the responses were about the story and the world it took place in. People immersed in our universe, spellbound by the characters we filled it with. We realized that we could only afford to either develop better graphics or develop Suikoden's world more. The choice was obvious. Hi, Dumakai. I'm writing the Suikoden 2 retrospective. Suikoden 2 come out. Suikoden. It released in 1990, December. Pretty late. When did Final Fantasy VIII come out? February 1990. Oh, so it came out before Final Fantasy. Alright, that's kind of what I wanted to know. Might have been some concern that Suikoden 2 did not hold up visually to what other developers are doing on the platform. They believed the developers believed Konami at least believed that moving forward, sprite art is sufficient for the fans' expectations and would give Moriyama and his team time and freedom. Really work on sufficiently meet fans' expectations. Also give Moriyama and his team time and freedom they would need to further develop a world and story that would captivate their fan base. Captivate their audience. Something like that. I gotta take a call real quick. I'm gonna mute and come back momentarily. Sorry about that, guys. I suppose I should probably actually get going because there's some stuff I need to do in regards to that conversation. I'll just read this through once more and call it a day, I guess. Suikoden launched in December of 1995. It arrived early enough to become one of the very first sprawling JRPGs to land on the PS1, a platform which would later become a nest and haven for the genre as a whole. The timing was fortunate, seeing as powerhouses from Squaresoft were soon to follow. At the time, Suikoden was even considered by some to be a warm-up to games like Final Fantasy VII and Wild Arms. Due to being first to the party, so to speak, it sold well, meriting a sequel in the eyes of the higher-ups at Konami. Yoshitaka Moriyama, the series creator, got to work thinking about where the series should go next. During the course of the first game's development, Moriyama had chosen to stick with sprite-based art. I don't know why I put that in capital. With sprite-based art, rather than building the game in 3D, because in 1994 he simply wasn't impressed by early tests demonstrating the possibilities of new technology. The early polygon tests I saw were not impressive. I think the technology was still too young. 3D models didn't feel like people, they were too expressionless. We chose to make a pixel-based game instead because we would be better able to express the characters, give them more soul. However, once it was time to move forward with the sequel, PlayStation games were beginning to push the boundaries of what could be accomplished with 3D graphics. Contemporaries like Final Fantasy setting the standard what players would expect from RPGs moving forward. However, given the smaller budget Konami could allocate to the project, Moriyama felt he had a hard choice ahead of him. Upon examining the feedback from fans of the first title, Moriyama noticed that the majority of the most passionate players seemed to drawn to Suikoden's story and world above anything else. We noticed that players really loved the world and characters we had created. All the letters we got, all the responses were about the story and the world it took place in. People got immersed in our universe and were spellbound by the characters we filled it with. Once we realized that we could only afford to either develop better graphics or develop Suikoden's world more, choice was obvious, we chose the world. This feedback was key in closing the door on the decision, and though there might have been some concern that Suikoden 2 would not hold up visually to what other developers were doing on the platform, Konami at least believed that moving forward with sprite art would sufficiently meet fans' expectations and also give Moriyama and his team the time and freedom needed to further develop the world and story. World is fine. Needed to develop a world and story that would captivate their audience. Okay, I think that's a good starting point. Sorry for the long break there. Stuff at work that I have to take care of. So, appreciate you guys watching. I'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll just keep working on this. We'll make this the next video. Thank you, and peace out.